I'm 61 and I'm swimming a 5K challenge. Did you know that swimming can actually add decades to your life? The British Journal of Sports Science has come up with this stat that 28% means that there's a 28% lower risk of premature death for swimmers. Whoever knew that? And so research is also showing that we are living longer, way into our 80s, 90s, and hopefully to become centenarians. But the question is, what are we, each and every one of us, doing to try and ensure that we can live the fittest as we possibly can as we continue to age? If you're new here, welcome. My name is Bybreen Samuels, and you're here at the Smart Years, a place where boomers can thrive, reinvent, and live well into their third act of life. So here I am on this self-selected journey. Nobody pushed me into swimming 5K. And as of last week, Friday, I've swum 68 lengths, which is a massive achievement for me because I've never swum 68 lengths. And in order to swim 5K in the pool that I'm swimming in, I have to swim 200 lengths because the length of my pool is 25 meters. And so far, this 68 lengths has taken me about an hour and 35 minutes. Very slow, but slow and steady wins the race, as they say. Now, my mindset towards this is that, I would describe myself as a pro-aging baby boomer. So I'm very comfortable with the fact of aging. But what I'm actually doing is pursuing longevity. We're living longer. And so the idea is, how do we begin to build a framework or adopt a framework, namely optimal aging? So we have the Indiana University, and they've got this framework, which really takes account of this fact. The idea is that as we continue to age, how can we step into all of the different areas of our life? For example, how can we improve our physicality, our emotional well-being, cognitive, social, spiritual ways of living in the world? And so optimal aging requires us, invites us into reframing our lives, that we're not only looking at, how long can we live, but how well can we live? And so that's a bit of the context with regards to supporting my journey of my 5K. Now, with regards to my story, where did this all start? Well, I've always had a great relationship with movement and exercise. And I have to say, at 61, I actually have maintained a movement practice for 56 years. And it really started with the egg and spoon race of my primary school. So I was 5 years old, ran my very first egg and spoon race. The egg went one way, the spoon went the other, but I shot off into the distance. And who would have known that from then, and I can look back now, that I've had this very healthy relationship with movement. But why swimming? Well, I have to say I was inspired by a very unlikely person, i.e. Richard Branson. He doesn't know me, I don't know him. However, I caught an interview of his where he was explaining the fact that he swims 5K every day between his islands. Well, I don't have the islands, but I was truly inspired by the fact, because he must be, well, he is in his 70s now. And for quite some time, I would say years, possibly decades, this is what he's done. I thought that's a fantastic opportunity for me to think about, how can I always re-engage aspects of myself that I don't quite know exist? Meaning that, is there an opportunity for me to connect or reconnect or rediscover aspects of my inner hero? And so that really was the catalyst, because as I said, I've done decades of exercise, and I've done endurance exercise in terms of distance running. So around about 2010, 11, 12 was the season for running. So I was in my very late 40s and I ran a half marathon. I'm very proudly holding my medal here, Run to the Beat in London. So that was my first one. And then I thought, okay, I'm ready now to take on more of an endurance style of exercise. So I did a full marathon, and this is the Richmond Park marathon, which was grueling to say the least. I fell, cut my leg open. I really had to channel my inner Paula Radcliffe to get all the way through it. But since then, I haven't done distance or endurance sports. I've done other things. And so when I heard Richard Branson talk about this idea that he swims 5K every day, I thought, well, that'd be a fantastic thing for me to do to incorporate into my sort of portfolio of movement. And so that was the catalyst for me to see if I could swim 5K. So I'm self taught, I've never been to a swim club. But it's like, well, that's not going to stop me. Just dive in as I've always done with exercise, because movement is my first language. It's the thing that I do without anybody encouraging me to do it. And so with the movement journey, it's like, okay, how am I going to begin to do this? So each week, what I do is I say to myself, can I swim an additional 2 lengths? And so this journey of swimming 5K actually started last year. I sort of started and stopped, and then really committed to taking it on this year. So maybe around about springtime is when I got serious with it. When I started back in the spring, I probably had maybe 10 lengths under my belt, so to speak. And what I have just literally been doing is swimming every other week. And my goal is, how do I get better? Can I swim another 2 lengths? And so I'm using swimming as one of my pillars, or deepening my pillar of movement, to help me with this idea of longevity. Now, the journey has certainly not been smooth, but nonetheless, I show up every single week. And so the challenge is, can I do it? I'm not bothered about the time. I have no competition that I'm swimming for. So it doesn't matter how long it takes me, but how committed am I to my goal of achieving something I've never attempted before, but thinking about my wider vision of how can I live longer in the fittest possible way. So the tests that have come along the way is that a challenge that I'm facing is that last week, Friday, I swam 68 lengths, which was great. I hit my target, but I was overworking my body. I could feel it. And the reason being is because I haven't managed or mastered or really got on top of the idea of my breathing technique. And so there's a way to breathe, which I haven't cracked as yet. And so I could just feel as if I was overworking my body. Another challenge is that, yes, I'm swimming these lengths, but I haven't got to the stage where I'm comfortable about swimming with my head under the water. And this will then help regulate. So that's a challenge for me. So when I got out of the pool this week, one of the fantastic assistants who knows that, I turn up every 2 weeks outside of going to the gym to do this. And he said, I noticed that you were struggling a bit in terms of, you were moving your head a lot. I was moving my head a lot. So he said, why don't you come in outside of the swimming sessions and go and see one of the swim coaches, and they will be able to talk you through how you can learn how to swim with your head underwater, because I've got the strength to keep moving up and down the pool, but not quite mastered that final technique, which is great. They also invited me to swim for the sports center, and they said, it's really great that you're doing this. You're really committed. We see you coming in every other week to do this. There's a 5K swim challenge. Would you represent the sports center? And I said no. And the reason being is because swimming, or any other form of exercise that I have done throughout the decades, for 5.5 decades, it gives me pleasure. Swimming, exercise, movement is for me. It's not for being in competition. It's not about raising money for charity. I'm being exceptionally selfish about this because it's the thing I really enjoy, and nobody has to motivate me to do it. So I turned it down. But nonetheless, I do have this support system, which is really important, whether you're taking on swimming, running, to have some type of support system to move you through towards your goal. So my training is beyond the work I do in the water. It starts really prior to that. So as I mentioned, I have a solid base, a pillar in my life of exercise. And I walk everywhere. I don't drive. I'm a committed non-driver, so my feet act as my wheels in public transport. I also go to the gym and I do light weights and, to kind of work my body. And so to help me on this journey to swim 5K, I'm in the gym 3 times a week. And that's sort of like my average. I'm there 3 times a week because it is about building full body strength. And so I use kettlebells, I use, a lot of the apparatus in the gym. And so that facilitates my swim because one of the things in terms of taking on this 5K is that you've got to have quite a strong core because I've swum 68 lengths so far. I'm hoping to do 200. And so it requires a really strong core. So doing strength training in the gym really does help me. So as I continue to do this, I'm also regulating the type of food I eat. So I'm a vegan, so I've got that base, and I'm more of a whole food vegan as opposed to a highly processed vegan. That's not to say I never eat processed food because I do. Um, and so my preparation for taking this on, I'm in the pool at 7:30 in the morning, which means that I have to be in bed by about 9 o'clock the night before. So at least I can have, a good amount of sleep. I'm rested. I invariably cook the night before. And as a vegan, it's not as if I'm eating meat as my protein sources or dairy as my protein sources. So it does require, I'll cook beans, for example, or lentils, and I make a lovely stew or a dal. I'll have that. I might have a salad with some avocado. So just ensuring that I'm fueling my body. Now, when it comes to carbs, I do eat carbs, but I've got to be careful because I'm fit, but I'm not 100% at my optimal health because I have type 2 diabetes. And so carbohydrates can exacerbate that, but nonetheless, I do need some level of carbs in order to fuel my body. So that's some of the adaptations that I'm making as I'm moving along my journey. And I'm loving it. Each time I get into the pool and I get there, I complete the task I've set for myself, and I come out and I might be exhausted, but I feel so exhilarated and I feel really empowered and I feel inspired by the journey that I'm taking because I'm taking myself to places I've never been before. And so one of the beautiful benefits of taking on a 5K swim, or whenever one takes on themselves in a powerful and positive way, it requires you to become something that you've never been before. So it's always that question at the back of my mind: who am I becoming, or who do I need to become in order to take this on? And each time, it's about courage, it's about foresight, it's about engaging my wisdom, it's about taking myself to places I've never been before. Now, as a result of this, some of the rewards I'm getting from my swim journey, together with, my everyday walking as well as the gym, is I am seeing some health benefits. So I just mentioned that I've got type 2 diabetes, have had it for quite some time. And I'm going to attribute swimming to improving some kind of, results I've had recently. So earlier in the year, I had my annual eye test. When you have type 2 diabetes, you have this annual eye test where there's this deep screening into your eyes. It's an annual test once a year to see if there's any kind of retinopathy issues. And anyway, I got the results around about springtime. And they said, there's no problems whatsoever. It's so much so that there's such little risk of my eyes being affected that they're now going to schedule me to have this appointment every 2 years. So I was punching the air because that's fantastic news. Then fast forward to about 3 weeks ago, I was called by my opticians, my regular opticians, to have my contact lenses checked. Anyway, so I went along and they were asking me, how am I getting on? And I said, well, sometimes I feel as if whether I have my glasses or my contact lenses, that my eyes are literally shifting in real time. Anyway, they checked my eyes. And afterwards, he said to me, well, I have to announce to you that your eyesight has actually got better. Now, I've been wearing glasses since I was 4.5 years old. And so, again, it was ecstatic news, so much so that my prescription has been lowered. So I shared with him, the news I got from the hospital and the fact that I'm swimming. And he said, listen, the blood that's in your eyes is the blood that's running through your body. So whatever you're doing, continue doing it because, there's excellent health is showing up here. So I'm attributing my inclusion of swimming into my life that's actually improving my health and my well-being. And so that's one of the brilliant rewards of taking on and pursuing longevity. It's, a marker, it's an indicator. It's calling me towards, how can I make improvements in ways it doesn't have to be overnight. Hopefully I'm going to live at least another 2 to 3 decades. I'm well into my 90s. I hope I become a centenarian. And so this little and often of lifestyle changes, including, exercise and movement, is yielding results, and they can for you as well. So that gives you a sense of why I've taken on the challenge, what the challenge is doing for me. Now, some of the benefits, as I mentioned, there's this 28% whereby there's this risk or lowering of risk in terms of premature death. Well, that's fantastic. To swim just to achieve that would be brilliant. It also improves muscle mass because you're using your whole body. All of the muscles and get used, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. And so swimming aids this in very, very positive ways. Now, it increases the muscle mass. So think about it in terms of your BMI. The more muscle you have means the more or the less fat that you have on your body. And so as part of this, testing that I have at the doctors and also at the gym, my BMI is like 20.8, which fits in with, my height and my physiology. And so swimming is also helping to increase my muscle mass as well as me maintaining my lean frame. So, that's brilliant. Another benefit is that when you swim, your joints are protected. Now, there's a difference between endurance swimming and endurance running. I'm doing one and I've done another one. So when it comes to running, it's really aggressive on your joints. And as I mentioned, when I ran my marathon, I fell during the marathon and I just could never get back into the kind of cadence of running. And I was coming up to my 50th birthday and I thought, I hope I'm strong enough because I wanted to treat myself to go off to this run club in Kenya to really get my groove on with running. And my body said, I really don't think so. No more of this. And so I remember once I'd healed from my fall and I tried to run again, my hip was hurting me. It's like, you know what? This is a sign to say it's too aggressive on your body. Whereas swimming is fantastic. You're in the water, so there's a resistance training, which really helps to turn. And it's a fantastic way to protect all of your joints. So, what could you begin to do to pursue longevity? Another thing that it does, it improves cognitive health and our mental wellness and well-being. Have you noticed, no doubt, that we have our phones and our smartphones and we all know about social media and we've been part of social media world, since it really began. But actually, I find in my life that it really kind of affects my attention. You might go to your phone to look at one thing, and then you find you're down a rabbit hole and you're into everything else. So one of the things that I started doing maybe from last year was to get back to reading books. I've got hundreds of books in my home here. I'm looking around and I've got hundreds of books. And so that improves cognitive health, well-being, short-term memory and long-term memory. And I find adding swimming to my well-being practice is yielding benefits from a cognitive point of view. So I invite you into the journey to explore who could you become? What type of exercise could you take on to help you pursue this lifestyle that brings about longevity? For me, as I said, I'm just going to continue every other week. I wish I could swim more. I more than once a week, but that would really mess up my hair in terms of the chlorine and afro hair. There's a beautiful, beautiful dance with my hair in terms of if I was to swim every day, I would never get anything done because it takes quite some time. But nonetheless, it's when I'm not swimming, what am I doing to aid this sense of my pro aging attitude, longevity, and hoping to live well into my 90s and maybe touching the rim of being a centenarian? I'm also going to incorporate lat pull downs in the gym because as the more I attempt to swim this, I'm going to need more upper body strength. And so lat pull downs in the gym is going to help me. I'm also going to be working with, having a medicine ball and doing twists from side to side. That's going to help build up my core. And I'm also going to incorporate, that seated rowing machine. I'm going to incorporate that. So with the swimming, those additions together with, my regular kind of gym run, so to speak, I'm hoping to, when the time is right, hit that goal of 200 lengths. So I'd love to hear, what are your plans? What are your intentions when it comes to, your health, your well-being, but also exercise? Are you a swimmer? I'd love to hear about that. Are you somebody that used to swim and maybe you're thinking about getting swimming back into your life and your program? Let me know. Let's talk about this. Let's explore how we can support each other on our journeys of reinvention. And as you know, this channel, The Smart Years, is all about reinvention in different areas of our lives. And it's with, information, trends, for example, that impact and shape the lives of us as baby boomers. That's why I have like newsy segments. I'm, creating this channel like a magazine style format where there are vignettes of information and then obviously lived experiences, but really it's all centered around this theme of reinvention. So I'd love to hear, how are you going to use sport and maybe even swimming to help reinvent your life? Put your comments in the comment box below. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I will see you again next week or later on this week with regards to another video. Stay well. Take care. Bye-bye.